So this is the second section. It's going to be about division. So as I mentioned earlier, multiplication and division glue things together into the same term. That's a really important concept to get across. So in this section, we'll look at how we represent division in algebra. We've already talked about multiplication by putting things next to each other without using a multiplication sign, unless it's two numbers. Let's get started. Okay, so in algebra, we write divisions as fractions. We don't use the little divide symbol that you might be familiar with. If you look at that little divide symbol, it actually looks like a fraction. It's got a horizontal line and it's got a thing on the top and a thing on the bottom. It's just got dots on the top and bottom instead of numbers on the top and bottom. So in algebra, we use fractions to represent divisions. And there's a bit of vocabulary to do with fractions that you may already be familiar with here. So let's just mention that. So a fraction, we've got a numerator on the top, sometimes called the dividend, and we've got a denominator on the bottom, sometimes called the divisor, and the line between them is horizontal and it's in the middle of the written line. So in this question, it's asking us to select the lines that have x in the denominator. So I can see these two, x is in the bottom half, whereas the third one, x is in the numerator in the top. There we go. Right, so this one we're going to have a go at applying an operation. So it's asking us to divide each of these expressions by 4x. So if I click on apply operation, I'm going to put divide by 4x. There we go. And it will show me how to do this because it's in show me mode. Okay, so that's now one term. All the multiplication and division glues that 3 and that a and that 4 and that x together into one term. So to select another one, I'm going to tap on that line, make sure the white arrow is on the one that you want it to be on. Let's move this down a bit. I'm going to do the same. So I'm going to divide by 4x and just sort of watch what happens here. So this is all one term, but there's some simplifications going on, and I'll talk a bit more about these in a moment. So this is simplified all the way down to negative 2y. So negative 2 multiplied by y. Negative 2 is the coefficient, remember. Scroll that up, select the 4x. Oh, we're not simplifying, are we? We are applying an operation. Divide by 4x. And press go. And we had 4x to start with. So when I divide 4x by 4x, what am I going to end up with? It simplifies all the way down to just 1. There we go. Okay, let's go on to the next question then. So Mr. Green's telling us here, did you notice some of those answers simplify? Yes, we did, Mr. Green. So when simplifying expressions, there's a couple of important things that we need to understand. So anything divided by 1 is itself, much like anything multiplied by 1 is still itself. So hopefully we're familiar with that idea. 7 divided by 1 is 7. 23 divided by 1 is 23, and so on. And then anything except for 0 divided by itself is 1. So here I've got a divided by a equals 1, as long as a isn't 0. And this is another use for algebra. Algebra is quite useful at expressing a general rule. So a could represent any number, and it's telling us here a can't be 0, but any number except for 0. If I do that number divided by itself, then I'm always going to get 1. Let's have a look at this task then. Order the following from lowest value to highest value. So 1 divided by 3 is a third. 2 divided by 1, the 2 is going to be itself, so that's going to have a value of 2. And 27 divided by 27, that's something divided by itself, so that one's going to be 1. So a third is less than 1, so I think that's the lowest. 27 over 27 is 1. And then 2 divided by 1 is 2, which is bigger than 1. There we go. So if we're simplifying a fraction, and you may have done simplifying fractions before, you look for common factors in the numerator and the denominator, or a number that goes into both the top bit and the bottom bit, and we cancel that bit out. But let's actually think about what's happening there. In fact, let's move this right up and have a look at what this says. So we're factors that occur in both the top and the bottom. These are being divided by themselves. So we'll simplify to 1. So remember, something divided by itself, except for 0, is going to give you 1. So if I've got something within a fraction that's being divided by itself, I'm going to get 1. So in the following example, both the numerator and denominator have factors of 6 and b. So if I look at 12ab divided by 18bc, that is one algebraic term, or it's all multiplication and division all glued together into one term. Both 12 and 18 have a factor of 6. 12 is 6 times 2, 18 is 6 times 3. And both the numerator and the denominator then have a factor of 6 and a factor of b, which means I can rewrite this term. I can rewrite this term as 6b times 2a. That's the same as 12ab. And I can rewrite the denominator as 6b times 3c, which is the same as 18bc. And that helps me then to see that I've got a 6b divided by a 6b, something divided by itself, which simplifies to 1. Something divided by itself is 1, which means I'm left with 1 multiplied by the other factors that weren't being divided by themselves. So what was left? So the 2a and the 3c. And 1 multiplied by those will just be those. So the 2a and the 3c. So this particular algebraic term simplifies down from 12ab over 18bc to 2a over 3c. And so that's how we're simplifying fractions. We're looking for factors in the top and the same factor in the bottom, and they're going to divide to make 1, and then we'll get rid of those bits and leave everything else. Okay, so let's have a look at this particular question. It's asking us, select the lines that can be simplified. So I'm looking for anything that's got common factors in the top and in the bottom, where the same factor appears in the top and the bottom of the fraction. So this first one, 2a over 10, both 2 and 10 have a factor of 2, so I think we can simplify that one. The second one, xy over 7x, both the numerator and the denominator have an x, so those would cancel out, as long as x isn't 0, which we'll assume it isn't. This one, 25x over 6y, I can't see any common factors there. Next one is 3a squared over 14a. So 3 over 14, there's no common factors, but a squared means a times a. And so there's a factor of a in the top, and there's also a factor of a in the bottom. So I think we can simplify that one. And then the last one, there's no more down there, 5x over 30y. Again, 5 over 30 will simplify down to 1 over 6, because 5 goes into 5 and it goes into 30. So it's a factor in the top and in the bottom. Okay, here we go. So use the simplify to see how each of the following simplifies. So this is just giving us some examples that we can watch, so we can play around with. So let's do the first one. So if I've got x's in the top and in the bottom, they're going to simplify. I'm still left with 1x in the top there, because I had two factors of x in the top to start with. And then 6 over 10 will simplify down to 3 over 5. Okay. Tap on that line to activate it and simplify this one. So as you do these, try and picture in your mind what you think is going to happen before you see the actual animation. So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, well, the a divided by the a, that's going to give me 1. So the a's are going to disappear. And 5 divided by 15, that's going to give me a third, isn't it? Because 5 goes into 5 once and it goes into 15 3 times. So a divided by a is 1. 1 times everything else is just everything else. 5 divided by 15 is 1/3. And the b just is still there. Okay, and then the third one. So 24 over 2 is going to, 24 divided by 2 is going to give us 12. b times b times b, which is the b to the power 3, divided by a b. One of those 3 b's on the top is going to cancel, leaving us with 2 factors of b on the top, so a b to the power 2. And then 12 divided by 2 should just be, 24 divided by 2 should be 12. Everything divided by 1 is just the thing that was there, so something divided by 1 is itself. Okay. So after this question, I think it's going to get into doing some practice questions. So we're going to see which of the following does 6xy over 3x squared simplify to. So the 6 divided by the 3 should give us a 2, which will be either in the main line or the numerator. The numerator is like the main line. I think next section I'll talk a bit more about fractions and how they work. X divided by x squared means there's one x factor in the top, two x factors in the bottom. So one of the ones in the bottom will cancel with the one on the top. So x divided by x will give 1. So I think we're going to be left with 1x in the bottom, a y on the top, and a 2 on the top. So 2y over x, I think should be our answer. There we go. Okay, now we can start practicing. So this is in show me mode, so it's going to do this one for me. Z divided by z is just going to be 1, as long as z isn't 0, which I assume it isn't. Can't divide by 0. So I'm just left with 9/8. Okay, similar again here. An a squared divided by an a will leave me with just an a. And yeah, if I want to skip to the end, I can do that. Okay, let's do this one. See how many more we get in show me mode. So a divided by a is 1. B divided by b squared is going to leave me with a 1 on the top and just one of the two b's left on the bottom. And then 1 times the rest is just going to be 3c. There we go. Okay, so now we're in step check mode, so I'm going to have to go through and try this myself. So I need to simplify it. So I've tapped simplify. Let's use the paste button. Let's paste in what's there before and start thinking about it. So 40 divided by 15. Well, I can see that 5 goes into both of those. So I'm going to take out a factor of 5. So the 5 divided by 5 is giving me 1. And I'm going to think about what would be left. So 40 is 8 times 5. And 15 is 3 times 5. Okay, then I've got x squared, or x times x on the top and an x on the bottom. One of those x's on the top divided by the one on the bottom is going to leave 1, which means there's just 1x left. Oops, daisy. 1x left on the top. So we'll get rid of that power. There we go. And you can see the step check there telling me that that step was correct. Okay. All right, so this one, I think the x's are going to cancel each other out. X divided by x is 1, as long as x isn't 0, which we'll assume it isn't. And y divided by y times y is going to leave 1y on the bottom. So I'm going to have 2 over y. There we go. Go into independent mode now, so it's not going to tell me if I've got the step right until I click mark it. Again, it's not going to be relevant so much until you get onto the types of tasks where you've got more than one step. So here, I think the 7 is not going to cancel with anything, so that's going to stay there. That's divided by, so I've got 1y on the top and 2 y factors on the bottom, which means there'll be 1 left on the bottom. And a's, the 1 on the bottom will cancel with one of the ones on the top, leaving the other one. There we go. Okay. And then we'll try another one. So I think the 2a in the top is going to cancel completely with factors of 2 and a in the bottom. So I'm going to be left with a 1 on the top, divided by, and then what's left in the bottom, I'm going to have 5, one of those a squareds, and then a b. There we go, and now I've got the progress button, so I could tap that and move on if I want to. Let's do 1 or 2 more. So 2 divided by 6 will cancel down to 1 divided by 3, and x squared divided by x. So let's put in the 1 over 3. And then x squared divided by x is going to leave an x on the top. So 1 times x is actually just x. So x over 3. Okay, and you might be able to see that. That progress button's a little bit bigger now. Similar one, so 6 divided by 3 is going to give me 2. X divided by x is going to give me 1. And then there's a y in the denominator, so divided by y. There we go. Let's do one more. Okay, so y divided by y is going to give me 1. And then the x is in the denominator, so I need x in the denominator, and y divided by y was 1, so that leaves me with the 1 in the numerator. Okay, so let's tap the progress button and move on from that section. There's Mr. Green still in his hot air balloon flying through the sky, gaining a higher view of everything. And there we go, we're going to section 3.